Doesn't seem to be any understanding of how long she is. Better if she's long than shorter, but if it's too long, that's kind of over. It gets big. Too much. Hang yourself with one of this. Hare Krishna. Okay.
Apparently, so it's just you and me.
Just you and me. That's it. Okay. You know, I'm not. Yes. Why don't you sit in here? You never know. Maharaj may come, so sit up. Here we go. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Janavalabha Girivaradhari Pause. Set up the other one. That's the one I use. He doesn't like that one. You know, the wooden one. Yashodanandana Bhajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Bhajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari and Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Mishnapad Paramahansa Pradikacharya Ashtotar Tadashi Srimad Divine Grace Srila A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Jaya Mishnapad Paramahansa Pradikacharya Ashtotar Tadashi Srimad Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnavinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Kantaraj srimadbhagavatam Ki Jai Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Sri Guru and Gauranga. So it's not that hot today, but well, if Maharaj comes, he's going to want it open. He runs a little hot. Oh, not too far. Yeah. That's plenty. That's plenty. This one. Noise otherwise. This one too. Yeah, back, cross, then. Narayanam namaskritya Narang chaiva narottamam Devim saraswatim vyasam Tato jayam mudiriyet. Before reciting this Srimad Bhagavatam, we should offer our respectful obeisances unto Lord Narayan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, unto Narayan Rishi, the supremest human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author, and unto Srila Prabhupada, the translator, commentator, and our spiritual master. Nashta prayesha badreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavatyuttama shloke bhakti bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on Srimad Bhagavatam and by rendering devotional service to the pure devotee, all that is inauspicious within the heart is destroyed almost to nil, and loving devotion to the Supreme Lord who is glorified in transcendental songs is established as an irrevocable fact. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. On this 11th day of August, 2017, in SanDiego, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. We are in Canto 3 entitled The Status Quo, Chapter 25, The Glories of Devotional Service. And this is the teachings of Lord Kapila, the son of Devahuti, chapter 15. Text number 16. Aham mama vimano thai. I guess we should do it one word at a time. All right, why don't we try that? Aham mama abhimano thai. Kama lobhadibir malai vitam yada mano shuddham addukam asukham samam. Aham mama bimano thai. Kama lobhadibir malai. Kama lobhadibir malai. Vitam yada manak shuddham. Vitam yada manak adukam asukham samam. Aham mama bimano thai. Aham mama bimano thai. Kama lobhadibir malai. Vitam yada manak shuddham. Adukam asukham samam. Aham mama bimano thai. Aham mama bimano thai. Kama lobhadibir malai. Vitam yada manak shuddham. Adukam asukham samam. Go ahead. Dive right in. Aham mama bhimano thai. Kama lobhadibir malai. Vitam yada manak shuddham. Adukam asukham samam. Aham mama bhimano thai. Kama lobhadibir malai. Vitam yada manak shuddham. Adukam asukham samam. Aham, I. Mama, mine. Abhimana, from the misconception. Uttai, produced. Kama, lust. Lobha, greed. Adibihi, and so on. Malai, from the impurities. Vitam, freed. Yada, when. Manaha, the mind. Shuddham, pure. Adukam, without distress. Asukham, without happiness. Samam, equipoised. Translation. When one is completely cleansed of the impurities of lust and greed produced from the false identification of the body as I and bodily possessions as mine, one's mind becomes purified. In that pure state, he transcends the stage of so-called material happiness and distress. Purport. Kama and lobha are the symptoms of material existence. That's lust and greed. Everyone always desires to possess something. It is said here that desire and greed are the products of false identification of oneself with the body. When one becomes free from this contamination, then his mind and consciousness also become freed and attain their original state. Mind, consciousness, and the living entity exist. Whenever we speak of the living entity, this includes the mind and consciousness. The difference between conditional life and liberated life occurs when we purify the mind and the consciousness. When they are purified, one becomes transcendental to material happiness and distress. In the beginning, Lord Kapila has said that perfect yoga enables one to transcend the platform of material distress and happiness. I'll wait. Yeah, it sounded like a child crying or something. Okay. How this can be done is explained here. One has to purify his mind and consciousness. This can be done by the Bhakti Yoga system. As explained in the Narada Pancharatra, one's mind and senses should be purified, tatparatvena nirmalam. One's senses must be engaged in devotional service to the Lord. That is the process. The mind must have some engagement. One cannot make the mind vacant. Of course, there are some foolish attempts to try to make the mind vacant or void, but that is not possible. The only process that will purify the mind is to engage it in Krishna. The mind must be engaged. If we engage our mind in Krishna, naturally the consciousness becomes fully purified, and there is no chance of the entrance of material desire and greed. Om jnana timarandasya jnanandana shalakaya chakshu unmilitam nena tasmai shri gurave namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisances unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, this is the introduction. Lord Kapila Deva is still speaking in the introduction to his teachings to his mother. And in a few verses we will commence with the Sadhu Sangashtaka. And he gives practical instructions how this process of purification can take place. Now in the previous verse, he described the distinction in terms of the modes of nature, about turning the consciousness away from the modes of nature to the Supreme Lord. The stage in which the consciousness of the living entity is attracted by the three modes of nature is called conditioned life. But when that same consciousness is attached to the Supreme Lord, one is situated in the consciousness of liberation. So what is the symptoms of the conditioned life, conditioned consciousness, is this I and my consciousness. This is the essence of the false ego. And I can't help but recall the passage in the first canto, second chapter, where Sutta Goswami is describing the process of purification. And it begins with hearing. It always begins with hearing. Krishna, how does it go? Shunbatam sukata Krishna punya shravana kirtana ridyan daksto yabadhrani vidunoti suritsatam. Vidunoti means to cleanse. So here he's describing that preliminary verses described how one can become attracted to this process of hearing. And once you have a taste for it, a rati, then here's the result. So Krishna is in the heart as a super soul. He's the active member, the actor, the subject of this sentence, of this verse. So when one is hearing Shrinvatam, or one who is hearing about Krishna, from within in that person's heart, Krishna cleanses away the abhadras. And those abhadras, because he is the friend of the devotee, it's not some mechanical process. Everything is ultimately personal. everything. We forget that. We live in a world that seems to be lacking in personality, and we invest it with personality. But actually, behind everything, every atom of matter, there's a person, and within every atom, there's nothing that's impersonal. So Krishna is within everyone's heart, and when he hears or he understands that the devotee is hearing about him properly from the right source, he cleanses away these impurities. And then the next verse, which we chant every time the class occurs, Nasta prayeshu abhadreshu, when those abhadras are almost destroyed to nil. Nityam Bhagavata Sevya, by serving the Bhagavatam, by hearing it and repeating it, and by serving the Mahabhagavat, the devotee Bhagavat. Bhagavat Yuttama Shloke, Bhakti Bhavati Naishtiki, one's bhakti or devotional service progresses to the point of nishta or firm faith. And in that state, it's described identical with this. Tadadadas tamo bhava, kama lobhana yasche, the same words are used, kama lobhana, you see? Tadadadas tamo bhava, kama lobhana yasche, eta unavadam stitam sattve prasidati. That one rises out of the modes of passion and ignorance. The purification means that it comes to the mode of goodness. And the concomitant effects of the modes of passion and ignorance, which are lust and greed, etc., low body beard, this is also etc. here, are eliminated from one's consciousness. Nityam then tada, at that time, tada rajas tamo bhava, the nature of passion and ignorance, kama lobha yascha, which include lust, greed, etc. Anger is in there, in the etc. Chaita eta unavadam, one's consciousness is not affected in that way. He's transcended that, come to the mode of goodness and going up to pure goodness. And chaita unavadam stitam sattve prasidati, one's fixed in the mode of goodness. And that's the platform upon which one can build further advancement. So the effect here is described, the malai, these are impurities. So when one is not affected, is freed from these, then you become indifferent. Adukam, asukam, samam. One doesn't experience either material happiness or material suffering. You're transcendent to that. This is the idea. So what is this kama and lobha? This is the enemy of the conditioned soul. It is a symptom of ignorance, really. When we turn away from Krishna and we come under the control of the material energy, then we acquire the material mind, the material senses, and these material senses are infused with the mode of passion. They're created from the mode of passion and ignorance. And then they're naturally attracted toward the objects of the senses. So we want to possess things so that we can enjoy them. It's an attempt a really pathetic attempt to be like Krishna. Krishna is the supreme controller, he's the supreme enjoyer. And when we turn away, we become little play Ishwaras. We're Ishwaras, but in a very minute way. And again, we're conditioned, we're punched in the mouth, and we can't enjoy. Let's try as we might, at a certain point in life, there's no enjoyment. It's just suffering. And sometimes severe, extreme suffering. And there's nothing you can do about it. And you can imagine what this does to your God project. You know, you suddenly, obviously you're not the controller. So this happens again and again in every species of life, especially human life, when we have this higher intelligence. So it's a contamination. This is this impurity, this false ego, this lust and greed. So how to become free of it? The very senses, this is the genius of the bhakti process, the very mind, the very senses that we have, you can't repress them, but you have to engage them. You have to link them up to Krishna. And by that linking process, just by thinking of Krishna, just by hearing Hare Krishna, just by cleansing the floor, doing something with all the senses, seeing the deity, you don't have to do anything else, you know. Now, the best thing is the mind and the intelligence linked up to Krishna. That's very, very powerful purification. But even if it's just basically the senses and the mind work together, then the senses will become purified. And because Krishna is naturally attractive, then the mind becomes easy to control. This was the idea in the 7th chapter, Maya Sakta Manapartam. Now I'm going to show you how you can make your mind naturally attracted to me. And then you won't have to worry about all this artificial meditation in the previous chapter, in the 6th chapter. We're not suited to that. But we're perfectly suited to the natural process of bhakti. It's susukam, kartamabhiyam. And indeed, in a few verses when we launch into the Sadhu Sangashtaka, beginning in text 20, after a few verses it says, this is the easy process, Vijubir Yogam. It basically consists of getting together and glorifying Krishna, coming together with other bhaktas. This is what Sankirtan is all about. The most essential and pure form is Nam Sankirtan, Hari Nam Sankirtan. I chant, you hear, you chant, I hear. What could be more pure than that? And that is Chaito Dharpana Marjana, just by hearing the name. But the intelligence is also desirous, as Prabhu would always put it, of engagement. And so that's why we have all of these books and we have all of these ideas and these instructions from the Shastra and from the Acharyas. And so all of it makes perfect sense when you're actually trying to be Krishna conscious. So, Prabhupada makes the point here that the living entity implies the existence of mind and consciousness. The living entity is conscious and is consciousness. There's no living entity without consciousness. And whenever there's consciousness, there is a mind. Now, it may be very, very, very rudimentary, covered over by some low body, but there's some kind of mind there. Even the amoebas have some kind of mind. You watch them in the petri dish and they're going toward the food and they're trying to get away from the danger. You know, there's something going on. So, but it's very, very covered. But in the human form, it's uncovered to a great degree. And so, because we have that higher intelligence, we have the ability to direct the lower self, rather than just be controlled by the lower self. That's the great advantage of the higher intelligence. So we want to purify that intelligence from hearing the Shastra. Then we'll know how to act and we'll have the will to do it. Okay, so Prabhupada refers to this verse from Narada Pancharatra. Now this one deals with the upadis. Upadis are an important conception. These are they're false designations that we place on ourselves and that we embrace as our identity. So we have these upadis such as, they all really are rooted in the body. Where's the body born? Okay, I'm an American. That's great. You know, I don't have to worry about getting a green card. I have my passport, and this I struck. You know, I hit the lottery. I'm an American. You know, but we're not Americans. We know that. That's a false designation. It's an illusion. And the next birth, we could be in China. We could be in Ecuador or whatever. So that we could be in some whole different planet. So but it's an impurity. And from that false identity, these upadis, I'm male, I'm female, I'm so old, this is the color, this is where I was born, all of this stuff are called upadis. And they comprise what most people think to be who they really are. Unfortunately, it's always changing. One day, you're, 25-year-old American, white, Southern Californian valley girl. Maybe 18, But that doesn't last very long. Next year, you grow up, you're out of high school, and you go to college. That's a big headache, You can't just play all day on the beach, and then on, and then before you know it, oh my God, I'm 30 years old. Every time you hit one of the, I remember turning 20, it was like a whole thing. I'm not a teenager anymore. My God, I'm going to be 21 in a year. I'm going to be, I have all these responsibilities. But there's some advantages. Driver's license, I could drink, and all this. But, then 30 means, oh my God, I got to get it together. I got a job, whatever, And then 40, what happened? I was just in my 20s. Now I'm 40 years old. 50, I'm an old man. 60, I'm practically have one foot in the grave. No, I mean, it's just, material life is like a series of shocks and disappointments. And then kind of saying, well, okay, at least I have this. In other words, you're settling, and you settle for less. You have to keep settling for less. Until finally, the last settlement is, well, I'm dying, but at least I have health insurance. I mean, I don't know what. So, so this is material life, and it's full of upadi. So the verse is sarvopadi vinimuktam, tatpavaratveina nirmalam. Prabhu is quoting this, is tatpavaratveina nirmalam. So sarva upadi vinimuktam, in order to actually render devotional service, pure devotional service means completely free of these upadis and identifying oneself only as the servant of Krishna, which we are. Jivera swarupoi Krishnera nityadas. Krishna says that in his form as Lord Chaitanya. That's the answer. Who am I? Right? The long, thousands of years philosophers have wrestled with this question. Who am I? Who am I? Well, just read the Chaitanya Charitamrita. Read the Bhagavad Gita. So he says, Jivera swarupoi Krishnera nityadas. Now, if I am Krishna's servant, then I have to act like that. Now, this body is kind of doesn't allow us to act fully as we want to. We have to sleep. But we can do the best we can. This is the idea. Whatever facility you have, anyone can chant, everyone can take prasadam, and so begin. If you begin with this, then you make enormous advancement actually every step of the way. But it's a process, and it's a practical process. There's always a place where you can begin devotional service, and it begins with the tongue, chanting Hare Krishna and tasting prasad. So sarvapadi vinitapani rishikena rishikesha sevanam. This is the essential line here, that it's all about serving Rishikesh, the master of the senses, with our senses. And in order to do that purely, we have to be free of the false sense of, well, this is my body, I mean, I can serve Krishna for a little bit, but what about me? As soon as you say, what about me, that's false ego. You're saying, well, what about my false ego? But that's why we're here. That's the source of your suffering. So when it's nirmalam, not any, nirmalam means no contamination at all, then you're on the platform of pure devotional service. Rishikena Rishikesh Sevanam Bhakti Ruchate. This is defined as bhakti, and it's really defined as pure bhakti. This verse appears in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, right near the famous verse Annabilashita Shunyam. It's more or less described in the same way. That pure bhakti is defined as always acting with the intention of pleasing Krishna, and not having this bhakti covered or polluted or mixed with any other desire. And he gives a little summary. Jnana, karma, adi. So jnana means the desire for liberation, karma means the desire for sense gratification, and adi means anything else you might come up with. It has to be completely, intentionally for Krishna's pleasure. Now, how do we know what Krishna wants? That's why we need the Shastra, and we need the Acharyas, and we need the Mahabhagavats, who are on that platform and can enlighten us. Here's what Krishna likes. And just by serving the great devotees, you're pleasing Krishna. And what are the devotees asking you to do? Serve Krishna. But at the same time, the serve in a specific way. So Srila Prabhupada is, I want you to chant Hare Krishna, but I also want you to produce back the Godhead. I also want you to do this. There's so many specific things. So that's how the process works. And if we do it right, then we feel ourselves rising up from the modes of passion and ignorance. The lower modes don't bother us. It's not in the program. It's disapproved. You can't do all the things you used to do. You have to do different things. And gradually you find that this is really a more peaceful and happy way of life. It's certainly more peaceful and happy than being, imprisoned by so many attachments. Because here's the symptom. We live in an age which is, in one sense, very difficult to practice devotional service. It's full of all passion and ignorance. There's so much disturbance going on. But in another sense, it's very ideal because you can immediately see the results of not being Krishna conscious. In the modern age, people couldn't even conceive of the type of things that we can own and control and play with and enjoy in this age. in previous ages. I mean, even just 100 years, 50 years ago, 30 years ago, 40 years ago in the United States, what to speak of other countries. So in order to stay up with, if you're really in the mode of enjoyment, and you say, okay, you're not poverty stricken, you're in the upper middle class or middle class, so now what happens? There's so many things, electronics and trips and experiences and drugs and everything you have to try. Now how are you going to enjoy all that? Well, for most people, the only practical way to do it is to go into debt. If I'm going to go into debt. And as soon as you go into debt, that's a big load on your head. I don't know if any of you have ever tried to get out from under college debt. Did you ever have that? A little bit. I was fortunate I never had that. There are people now, because they've arranged it. I mean, these guys are demons. That you can't declare bankruptcy on that debt. It stays with you to your dying day. There are people retiring now who went to school in the 60s who still have a few $1,000s of debt, and of course it balloons up with all the interest. You eventually just pay the interest, you still have the principal. And their Social Security checks are being garnished to pay off their college debt. This is how much that's burden on your head. All that worry and anxiety, and then, and this Social Security is practically barely is enough to feed you, pay rent, what to speak of, medications you need. In other words, it's slow torture. All because, you had to have something, and they make it impossible to buy without going into debt. So just see what a liberation it is, to not have all of these worries about anxiety about money. We may feel, I wish I had more, to spend on this and that. But it's nothing compared to what people who are plugged in to material life is like. And so with that freedom, that freedom from anxiety, you can better focus the mind on Krishna. And that's the gold standard. That's really what we're trying to. As I was chanting my rounds this morning, I was remembering this verse, and I was trying to get in the mood of this verse. Because you're talking about greed, and when you're talking about greed, that's part of the verse, right? Kama lobha. So greed is a product of lust. When you're too lusty, then you get too greedy, and you want more and more because you can never have enough. It burns like fire. So how to sublimate that greed? How to engage greed in Krishna consciousness? Well, there's two verses about greed. Where greed is good. Have you ever heard the phrase? You ever hear that? The stock market runs on greed. Can you imagine? The whole economy would collapse if it wasn't greedy. So one is the famous verse you may know. Krishna bhakti rasa bhavitamati. Does it ring a bell? Should. Krishna bhakti rasa bhavitamati kriyatam yadikatopi labhyate tatra laulyam abhimulyam ekalam janma koti sukatayana labhyate. So you have lobha, you also have laulyam. There's a slight difference. Laulyam is like ardent desire for something material. We're enjoined to give up laulyam. That's one of the 6 things that destroys devotion. For material things. Ardent desire for material things. But here he's saying that Krishna Bhakti Rasa Bhavitamati, your Krishna consciousness, probably turn this into Krishna, means the mind absorbed in Krishna Bhakti Rasa. Bhavitamati. This is so valuable, you should buy it if you can find it. But what's the price? Your greed for it. In other words, your desire for it is your price. So then the question becomes how to cultivate the desire for that, and that's bhakti. So the other one about greed is the verse of the miser. Vichayani vichayani vichintyani punak punaha kripanasya dhanani va tvannamani bhavantunaha. So this is what does a miser do? He collects as much as he can, but he doesn't spend it, right? He pulls it out of the vault, and he looks at it, and he plans how he can get more, and he counts it again and again. It's obviously OCD So it's sick. But as in so many other things, that's a perverted reflection of a good thing. So this verse says, compelled. It's compulsive. What is it? What does the O stand for? Obsessive. Obsessive compulsive. So he's compelled. Compelled to constantly collect and count his precious hoard, the miser contemplates his wealth with avaricious aims. Please bless me to become a miser who's compelled the Lord to constantly collect and count and contemplate your names. So that greed can be there for better chanting, you know. We're chanting, but we're not good misers. We're not contemplating well enough. We really have to get into it and contemplate the value of it. And it is the most valuable thing. There's nothing more valuable than the holy name. And I was thinking of, the other verse, Radheti nama navasundara siddhamugnam, how the name of Radha is like a fresh nectar drink with endless subtle taste. The name of Krishna is like kheer, thick and sweet. So we mix these drinks and add the cooling spice, which is camphor, to this mixture. And then we drink that beverage. This is Raghunath Das. This is how he's perceiving the name. So, okay, and so many verses. Madhura Madhura Maitan, sweet is sweet. Madhura Madhura, there's several verses about how sweet the holy name is. But we're not tasting it that way. We're spacing out, falling asleep, mischanting. Why is that? Are these acharyas, they're trying to run a scam on us? Is that they're tasting it as that sweet. And they're assuring us, Rupa Goswami assures us, yes, if you can just overcome the ignorance and the modes of passion and ignorance, you'll also taste it as sweet. What is that verse? Syat Krishna nama chaditaris satapya vidya pittopataptadasanasena rochikanu kinvadaradaduninan kalusaya vajishta svadvi kraman bhavaditan guna hantri. It's due to the disease of ignorance and illusion that we don't taste everything about Krishna as sweet as honey. But isn't it wonderful, he says, that if every day you chant, even though it's bitter, and you chant the holy name, pastimes, qualities of Krishna, that the disease of illusion is destroyed at its root, and the natural sweetness of all of these things is manifest. So we're in an unnatural state. As it is said, we're hiding in unnatural happiness. So the process of bhakti lifts us up out of the modes of passion and ignorance and cures us of the concomitant diseases of lust and greed, and makes us greedy for Krishna and allows us to taste everything related to Krishna, including his service, his glorification, and association, everything as sweet as honey. And that's called the spiritual world. There's no downside. It's not like there's sukha and dukkha. There's no dukkha. And the sukha is genuine happiness because it's not self-centered. Imagine a situation of love, where everything is alive, and you're helping this floor to serve Krishna by cleaning it nicely. And you're realizing how happy the floor is now because it's nicely serving Krishna. And that's how you feel, and you feel very good about that. You love the floor because it's a servant of Krishna. That's the spiritual world. Everything is alive. That's the world free from lust. There's no tinge of it. Therefore, there's no ignorance. That's what we're trying to strive for. It's difficult because we're so conditioned, so habituated to self-centeredness, false ego. I want to enjoy, like that. But that's what we have to work toward. And I guess I slipped over it. No, here it is. Huh. Did I read this whole purport? I did. Okay. Our mind is our friend. Well, this is right there in the Gita. Our mind is our friend, and our mind is our enemy. If it is cleansed, it is a friend. If it is dirty, we contact material diseases. I don't think I read that. Anyway, I don't remember reading it. I guess I'm just spacing out. No. Strange. Anyway, I'm going to read it again. If we keep ourselves clean, pure, we will not be contaminated. According to Vedic civilization, one has to cleanse himself externally 3 times daily, once in the morning, again at noon, and again in the evening. Those who strictly follow the Brahminical rules and regulations follow this process. Cleanliness is next to godliness. I didn't read that. Conditioned life means that the mind is covered with dirty things, and this is our disease. When we are in the lower modes of tamoguna and rajoguna, these dirty things are very prominent. One has to raise himself to the mode of sattva, goodness, by the process of sankirtan and shravana. I talked about it. One has to hear Krishna Katha. Krishna is within everyone's heart. The individual soul is part and parcel of Krishna. Oh, I know what happened. No, what happened was, it's the same verse, but I hit that little link that takes you to the teachings of Lord Kapila. So, actually, it's very illuminating. Maybe we can do that the rest of this. But yeah, that's why I said, wait, I didn't read that. Yeah, because they're taking in from Prabhupada's lectures. It's very illuminating. All right, any questions on these points? Yes, Prabhu.
The word like symptoms, you get
Symptoms.
Characteristics.
Yeah.
So, some people say, oh, well, symptoms, is generally referring to like, diseases, this kind of stuff. But at least from your perspective as an editor of English language and all that, that word symptoms.
We don't need my perspective. I looked this up because I was conscious of that too, seeing I'm dealing with these all the time. Let's look up a symptom.
Well, I mean, from your perspective, from your like.
No, the thing is, the connotation has come to mean a disease because it's often used for that. But that's not even the first definition here. I'm looking at the dictionary, the Shastra. Any phenomenon or circumstance accompanying something and serving as evidence of it. That's not a disease. A sign or indication of something, that's number 2. When you get to 3, pathology, a phenomenon that arises from a company's particular disease. So it's perfectly fine, Prabhupada used the word symptoms. Characteristics. That's
Interesting because I heard.
Yeah, I know, I heard also, but it's too much. Here's another word for you. Cavil. You know what cavil means?
Cavil?
Yeah. To raise irritating and trivial objections. Find fault with unnecessarily. Usually followed by
So
that's a word we should know.
So say the symptoms that you're just cavilling or?
Yes. If you're complaining about Prabhupada's use of the word symptoms, you're cavilling. In other words, raising irritating and trivial objections. It's not something we have. There's plenty of things that need adjustment in Prabhupada's English, and I've spoken about some of them, but that's not one of them.
And you talk about this idea that, okay, you serve Krishna according to what he likes, and then you're saying how that's in the Shastra what Krishna likes. And you see a lot of times, anyways, this isn't like some serious questions.
It's all right. It's a question.
You see a lot of times devotees, they like certain things. You can say that's not like on Christian diet, they're like pizza or this and that. But as far as you've heard, have you heard any cases in which Srila Prabhupada